Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Saturday Night Live and Rambling. I'm Clay, joined by the ever gracious E-Train. We're glad to be with you tonight. Appreciate you joining in live or on replay crew. And we do love our replay crew. We know several of y'all just can't make it on the live broadcast, and but y'all still give us updates, questions, some feedback, whatever, and we really appreciate you.
And some of you just ghost in the background, and that's fine too.
We'll work on the ghosting.
We don't judge.
We don't judge, but we do want you, we do want your participation. We want your questions, comments, whatever. Hello,
Hey,
Melissa.
Hey, Brentwood.
How are you doing? Hello, Brentwood. Good to see you. For those of you who do not know, Brentwood has agreed to be the moderator of the channel. She actually works another channel, and so it's she's playing around and learning StreamYard, so it's kind of mutually beneficial. So, but both her and Melissa are longtime viewers, longtime friends, and good seeing you both.
Members. I just want to bring up one thing today because we missed this last week because Clay and I were both sick. But we did our first welding class today. And we were doing stick welding. I'm not sure this is. I don't know if this is yours or mine. We suck still, but it was just one day. There's one. Then did y'all weld these two together? Did you do that?
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to figure out. Yeah, that one was mine. Not great. Don't know whose that was. Y'all can see that. And then we got more here. We did some practice, but we're going to start MIG next week, next Saturday.
This is really a hobbyist class. It's not a really develop your skills class. It's where you learn the basic techniques of all the different types of weldings, the applications for all the different types of weldings and cuttings, both oxyacetylene torches and plasma torches. Plasma torch is pretty cool.
It is darn cool.
And then found out about a blacksmithing course that's offered somewhere in the area. So I might sign up for that as well.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yes, Brentwood, we have the full on that is auto darkening, and even we have the fancy side panels. So if somebody's welding over here, that side will darken. It's kind of cool. But yeah, we are, and I wear glasses anyway when I weld. Clay doesn't have to wear glasses anymore, but with his brand new lenses. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's very interesting.
It is cool. I've kind of wanted to know how to do it for years, and saw the course and thought this will be perfect, because with my schedule at school, I really didn't have the time to take the daytime classes for welding. Still may, keep an eye out, and if some of those are offered at night, may do that to try to improve my skills and technique. May even end up buying a little welder and practice here at home, because technique's a huge part of it.
Well,
if you go for an MRI, tell them you've done welding. You need an X-ray before you get the MRI to make sure no metal. I will never have an MRI again because my body is chock full of metal. My ankle, my back, my knees.
True.
Yeah. So anything, magnetic.
Your nugget.
Ripping it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just not a good candidate for MRI.
No, but these little plates were, how we practiced and just tried to do. We tried to make a straight line and tried to make it so it wasn't like bumpy, and we learned a lot about. I learned a lot about that today. I assume you did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a cool and quite useful skill once we get it all figured out. I'm looking forward to the MIG
Yeah,
on Saturday.
I have a deep and abiding love for art and music. I have absolutely no gifts in that area. But I figured, with welding, I could do some things with rebar, make some headboards, that kind of thing. And
Okay, you do have the skill of making sure these metal plates are absolutely cleaned off to the best of your ability.
I'm a damn
You were
good
a
grinder.
pro. You are a damn good grinder. You are a precise grinder, and yeah, you did all the things.
So, and then I got had somebody get on me because I was going too slow and taking too long. So I had to speed it up. But we won't mention any names.
Who,
But
me?
it was a fun
Me?
day. It's going to
It
be a
was
good
fun.
class. Hope all of y'all have had a good week. This this actually, I've been out on spring break, which you think would be nice and relaxing and all, but I've really been, pretty busy trying to catch up on some work and some things that I haven't been able to, prior weeks. So it's just flown by. It doesn't really feel like a vacation.
And it's been
But I'm
raining like
but
most
I'm
every
thankful for
day.
the time, which hasn't been bad because it has made me stay inside and do work. Great, I've
However,
got
you want to
I've
get
got
other
papers to
things
grade.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's been a productive time. It's just gone by real fast. I hope you all have had a good week and enjoyed it. It has been a fascinating week. Um,
It's
got
been an
this got this
interesting week.
in the mail from one of our well-knowns, Melissa. She sent me an update on green bean. Now, if you've watched much of anything of this show, you know that dogs, animals, pets, cats, whatever, are a big part of it. I say a big part. They're a consistent part of it. So here is one of the stars of the show, Green Bean, checking out the Academy Award site to make sure everything's in place.
We can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
No, is there volume on it?
Yeah, hold on.
You did the thing, didn't
So,
you?
well, see, StreamYard won't pass the sound through to YouTube unless I start it up every time, the
Or
screen share.
Instagram. Hmm. Is it Instagram or YouTube it's on?
Any screen,
Oh,
but it doesn't pass the sound to YouTube.
now
The
I'm going to
sound
ask
still
y'all.
plays.
Yeah, Clay sounds crackly to me. Is that just me, or are y'all hearing that too? Anyone? It could just be my AirPods.
Okay, well, even better now.
We get green bean.
No, it won't share the screen.
Brentwood hears it too. There's something up with your connection on your shore. It might not be plugged in all the way. Thank you, Whiskey. Thank you, Brentwood.
Let me try something here real quick. Because my earphones are extremely loud. I can't get them turned down, the AirPods.
That's on the settings on StreamYard. We are professionals, people.
What
Clay's working
settings?
on it.
Audio, default, AirPods, default microphone.
Should be the.
Everything's set. Everything's set. Okay.
Do I have to come down and fix it? But you should be able
Well,
to
seeing as how you
control
couldn't
the.
get your own microphone working, that may not be the best choice.
My computer update. Hang on. I'll be right back. BRB.
Let's see here. Let me try
Because the
this.
crackling's annoying.
Hello, Whiskey 77. Is that any better? Can you tell? Yeah.
You move that a little closer too.
No, that won't change it.
No, just it's harder to hear you.
Let's see. Trying to think what else. Does that sound better? Okay, that probably was the AirPods then. I don't know why, but my AirPods seem to be acting up. So I will go without them. Let me change the settings here to default speakers. All right. That should work. All right. We'll go with that. If there's any, if you get any feedback from the sound, let me know. All right. Let's try, see if I can bring Melissa's up one more time. If I can't, we'll just.
Try again.
Okay, I did not start the sound and it loaded up this time, so we'll just watch the visual.
I think on the bottom you can hit the sound on or no. Oh,
And this
look at
is
Green Bean.
This is Melissa's green bean checking out the site of the Academy Awards, making sure everything is in good order.
Yes, he is.
Obviously, green bean is shy around people, nudging them out of his way.
Get the microphone a little closer. It's hard to hear you. Please. Oh, Green Bean.
Because the
He's so
microphone's an inch
excited.
from my mouth. I could be eating it.
Maybe it's a gain. Turn your gain down. Oh, GB. Cool. That's awesome, Melissa. Thank you.
So thank you, Melissa. Appreciate it. He is excited. Of course, green bean is almost always excited, almost as much as Melissa is. Melissa is just a great soul, and she is very gracious in sharing with us some of Green Bean's exploits. So thank you, Melissa.
He takes his jazz very seriously. Of course he does.
All right. In addition to Green Bean having a good week and going to the academies, this was an interesting week in terms of the economy and the State of the Union, both in terms of what's going on in the economy, some of the job releases, numbers coming out, but also in terms of the presidential State of the Union.
Sorry, I got a hair. Hang on.
She's got a hair. Got a hair.
Got a hair.
Got a hair.
Got a hole at the bottom of the sea.
Oh, I just remembered here. Let's see if this works. Because this is something I want you to hear. All right, we're going to start off the State of the Union with President Biden's 2022 speech, last year's speech. He didn't give one in 23, so we're a couple months late. But here is his most recent speech, the State of the Union, an excerpt from it.
2022, not 2024.
Right.
Let's cut energy costs for families, an average of $500 a year by combating climate change. Let's provide an investment tax credits to weatherize your home and your business, to be energy efficient and get a tax credit for it. Double America's clean energy production in solar, wind, and so much more. Lower the price of electric vehicles, saving another $80 a month that you're not going to have to pay at the pump.
I don't remember saving any money on energy. In fact, our power bill has gone ridiculously high.
Well, if you look at the numbers, gas prices are up about 40%. your electricity costs on average across the country are up about 30%. For the average family over this past year, energy costs have increased almost $3,700. He talked about building a bright future with EVs, electrical vehicles. Well, they're dying. Not completely dying, but sales have tanked. Ford's even
Because
stopped production of all theirs. GM's halting production. Volkswagen's stopping. Toyota's not even going to try to produce any. They have several issues, particularly in the cold weather with starting, running. Now, if you've got a garage, you can pull it in the garage, you can charge it okay. But if you're in more northern climates and you don't have a garage, charging it and getting it to full charge is difficult. You've got the soaring price of batteries and battery replacement, not to mention the fact that the battery production leaves behind huge toxic waste issues, including radioactive materials, and is mined with slave labor.
yes, whiskey.
Whiskey's kind of got the idea. Government math: spend $800 billion to tell everyone they saved 500. So,
Yeah.
combine that with, a lot of EV owners have tried to take their cars to trade in, and they've been kind of shocked because the resale values are near zero.
Well, because they have to replace everything in them.
Most people realize that if they buy a used EV, they've only got a couple of years till the batteries need replacing, and that's, a $20,000 to $30,000 expense. So, given that track record, I just saw Brentwood's comment, and this is a good time to mention it. Yeah. Not to derail the show. We have a young man on here, Carson. He will probably join us before long. He usually does. Carson's assigned responsibility is to derail the show
and get us off track.
Yeah, we have kind of a laid back format here. And sometimes we do, get in conversations and talk about different things, side issues, whatever. It's part of the joy of the show.
Yeah, and it's whatever you guys want to talk about. And it's, we if y'all bring up something that we think is interesting, we'll slide right over.
Yeah, we
try to come back.
That's just part of the appeal of the show. So we'll holler out at Carson when he signs on. But as Brentwood mentioned, we also have a book club for members. And the book club will meet this Tuesday, March 12th, via Zoom. We do it on Zoom rather than YouTube and StreamYard, because that way you can join in and participate and, make comments in real time. Having to type out all of your comments is tedious and slow. So it's just
still have anonymity
format for interacting with members. And so we thought we'd try it. This is the third book club meeting that we've had. And so we want to invite you, even if you haven't read the book is The Great Gatsby. It's not a long read, but a classic work by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And a modestly interesting read. So join us Tuesday night, at 7. Again, EST. All of our times are EST. Also, if you want to protect your identity, you don't have to turn on your camera. You don't have to use your real name. You can use, your online name. Most of us do. But you don't have to
give up anonymity.
Anonymity. Couldn't think of the right phrase there. So that's a good point. We know some people do want to protect their anonymity, and that's perfectly fine. Now, so we looked at Biden's 2022 speech. I'm having trouble thinking here because I'm doing a couple things at once. We looked at Biden's 2022 speech. So what, what from that was kind of the most memorable thing from 2022. Obviously, it's easy to poke fun at these kind of speeches where they get things, let's just say, modestly wrong. But I kind of thought that the State of the Union speech was different this year in tone and tenor than it had been in previous years. It really didn't give anything as far as the State of the Union. It seemed, well, let me just do this. Tom Ellsworth kind of
Yeah.
summed it up. And
Before
I share his perspective. So thought this might be interesting.
Wait, before you play that, Tom Ellsworth is a guy who does startup businesses. He's sort of an expert in startup and in finance and in presenting an idea to angel investors or acquiring the money that you need or telling you that, this is not a good idea, whatever. He's a smart guy.
So here's Tom Ellsworth giving his opinions on what was memorable about Biden's State of the Union address. What will this State of the Union address be known for?
I felt like he was propped up, and I think that State of the Union address will be known for the tone that he delivered, but not for any messages he delivered. You go back and you look at Obama. Obama did the State of the Union, and we all understood there were 30 million people that needed health care, and this is my plan. Now, we would later find out it's the most inflationary, health care act in the history of mankind. But we knew that he was all about, let's get 30 million people healthcare coverage. So there was something to it. In last night's speech, he was angry. He was upset. He was driving. I think people remember the tone, but you go 2 weeks from now, 2 seconds from now, and ask people, what did he say? What was the thrust for America? What was something that's going to change? It's like, I don't know. But he didn't fall down.
Now, he did even get Laken Riley's name wrong and called him Lincoln Riley, who is, I think, a Southern California football coach.
Yeah. So, kind of interesting comments on what the speech was known for or would be known for. And I don't really disagree. It seemed to be a very acrimonious speech, angry. There was a lot of anger in Biden's presentation. You think the guy's getting tired of getting knocked all the time?
How about this?
He takes his jobs very seriously.
That was about green bean, but I wish that Biden would. I'm sorry.
We're taking Melissa a little bit out of context there, but
well, that's what the media does all the time, do they not?
Yeah, we have that liberty.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing that I thought was kind of interesting that Biden proposed was a new tax credit for first-time home buyers of $10,000 or $5,000 a year. It's $5,000 a year for 2 years. Would be also for current homeowners who sell their starter home in order to jump into a bigger house. This is we've all heard people complain about soaring home prices and how hard it is for the Gen Zers to buy a house. Some of them are like, I'll never be able to buy a house. In 2020, you needed roughly $57,000 a year in income to buy a home. Okay, median income. Average person could buy a home. Now, due to soaring home prices and soaring interest rates, you need about $115,000 to buy the same starter home. That's an 87% increase over 3 years. I mean, that's pretty damn impressive any way you cut it. And, to kind of make that a little worse, the reason for the soaring housing cost, the reason for the soaring interest rates, or quite frankly, government policies. It was the forced lockdowns, paying people to stay home and not go to work, that generated the ability for so many to flee high tax, high regulation states for lower tax states. They could still keep their job working remote. And so you've seen tons of people flee California, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Maryland. You've got states like Texas, Florida, Arizona, North Carolina, Montana, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, all have gained. I mean, we're like on the interstate, coming into town, we literally want to put up signs. Hey, y'all, we're full.
Yeah, no more.
No more. We're just full. The town has just exploded the past 3 or 4 years. And people are like, oh, you're lucky. Your home price has gone up. Well, personally, I hate that because my property tax, I have zero income from that. But what I do have is my property taxes have doubled. My home insurance has tripled. That's not a great benefit.
No, it's
Whiskey
not.
got to agree. It was a very divisive speech. Like I say, I just felt like there was a lot of anger and it was a lot of partisan comments.
He pretty much
It really
attacked
wasn't
the
the
right.
State of the Union. Yeah, there was nothing State of the Union about it.
The only thing that bothered me from the Republican side, Clay, was when Mike Johnson was nodding about Ukraine needing more money. I was like, wait, no.
Nodding about what?
About Ukraine needing more money, that
Oh.
they needed to be funded. I was like, no. That's not a thing.
We've got, increasing numbers of Americans that are homeless, vets that can't get medical treatment. We've got, my opinion, too many needs, absolute needs. If we're going to spend tons of government money, we've got absolute needs here that need to be taken care of first before we, continue fighting remote wars, particularly wars that aren't going to be won.
Ukraine is not going to win that war.
Ukraine is not going to win that war.
Hey,
all we're
Clay,
going
real
to
quick.
do is get more and more and more people killed. We need
Explain.
to just have a ceasefire. They both, a year and a half ago at Minsk, they both agreed to a ceasefire. Biden and Johnson killed it, didn't want the ceasefire. So Ukraine backed out. Let's have a ceasefire. Let's stop the killing and start, rebuilding that area. What's done is done. Unless NATO gets involved, Ukraine is not pushing Russia out of that region. Russia's not walking away from that region. Practical realities, whether you like it or not, practical realities of this world.
And we did a video on that that you can go back and look at, is why Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's in our history. And also, can you kind of explain the term throwing good money after bad?
Yeah. Ukraine has almost depleted its 18 to 45-year-old men. That will be a loss that will be extremely hard for them to recover from. It's kind of like France. We kid about France being kind of soft and whatever as a nation. But if you think about it, in World War I, they lost 40% of their 18-year-old to 40-year-old men who were warriors. World War II took that count even higher. So for 50 years, they had huge losses in their, warrior class. And during that time, you had a lot of refugees from, Italy and Russia and Germany, whatever, and a lot of them were communist. And so the communists, the leftist parties grew in strength greatly just immediately after the war, the years after the wars, because there was nothing to counter them. So, if you think of my point is, if you think of the long-term impacts of the death of these young men provide a balance, a stability, a strength to their countries. And if they're gone, if they've been devastated, it's going to be a vastly different country going forward.
It already is. I mean, the average soldier now is a 45-year-old male.
I'd be surprised if it was that young. But the thing is, like I say, they're losing their males. They literally have lost most of their males, young males.
I think it's going
Now,
to be the 51st state.
probably. I hadn't really thought about that, but seriously, somebody's going to propose that before long.
Mm-hmm.
Now, looking at, the home proposal, the $10,000 tax credit, and I understand, if you're trying to buy a home, getting a $10,000 tax credit is kind of attractive. But individual preferences aside, looking at its impact on the economy as a whole, which is really what I focus on, would this tax credit help or hurt the economy? Well, after the last few months, we've seen the supply of homes increasing. We've seen home prices falling. If the tax credit was implemented, we'd likely see a renewed demand for homes, a demand that would likely surpass the available supply. Same thing
But
we've
wait.
seen over the last few years due to the COVID stimulus.
But wait, Clay. What about all of the immigrants that are sleeping on streets and in
Okay, let me just
shelters?
finish this point
All right,
first.
sorry.
Now,
I didn't get his notes.
yeah, the demand we have seen for houses since the 2020 COVID stimulus soared, blew up. It's what caused home prices to increase so rapidly. I've said this before. My home price increased 40% over a year and a half. It's on paper. Didn't add a dime to me. In fact, it took money out of my pocket with the increase, jump in taxes and insurance. Now, so if the tax credit passes, we'll see demand for homes reignite. That demand reigniting will cause prices to turn around and start inflating again. So we'll see a re-bubble or, a bigger blow up of the current bubble, even though prices have dropped some recently. And what would happen to these people after the credits expire in 2 years? $5,000 a year is roughly $400 a month. So all of a sudden, your expenses would go up $400 a month with no corresponding increase in income. What would that do to those people who are, on the borderline of getting a house without the tax credit? That's a big question, and also by that time, the continued inflation will have eaten up more of your income. So you have a housing bubble reignited. You have a severe cut to your net available cash. So probably not a good outcome, particularly for the poor and the middle class, 3 years from passing of that bill. Does that make sense? I think long term that what is an effort to come up with a temporary patch would end up increasing the long-term problems.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind what Biden promised for energy costs in the 2020 State of the Union. It's easy to make promises that you're never held accountable for. It's easy to say you want these things and this is your goal. And I keep telling my students, your goals don't matter. What you want to happen doesn't matter. What matters is that ideas have consequences, and it's the consequences of those ideas that people have to live with. That's what you need to focus on. It's not stupid should hurt, my rule number 2. And
These are
that
lovely
is the
hats.
Moffat on Money hat. Yes.
It is. So which I'm wearing right now because my hair was wet. We have a couple left. We're trying to figure out if we want to do merch. If you guys have an opinion, you see, is that look backwards to you?
Nope.
Because I usually mirror it. Okay, good.
Yeah, that's great. Stupid should hurt. So, politicians are wont to say what they think people want to hear. And then years later, when when the consequences of that particular act is slapping people all around, they're nowhere to be found. It's somebody else's fault, some other problem. Now,
Yes.
what else has happened this week? Well, the biggest thing probably in terms of the economic and in terms of the economy and economic news releases was jobs data came out, non-farm payrolls. And the Biden administration cheered. The rest of the market, not so much. The jobs number came out pretty strong. Up was it 375,000? I've had so many numbers going through my head this afternoon. I'm a little hazy. Should have written it down. But it was a strong number. People were predicting maybe 300, 290. Came in at 375. And I had a friend that I work with, economics guy, talk about the labor market that won't crack. It is amazing how many articles the Wall Street Journal has written over the past 6 months about tech layoffs, and yet the aggregate numbers are holding up. I wonder why there has been so little spillover. What do you say to that? Well, my response is pretty simple. Why no spillover? Why do we see all these layoffs, but yet the job market keeps adding 100,000, 150, 160,000 jobs net over and above what was expected? Huh. Could it be because the numbers are bogus? It was, we have seen consistently from this administration reports come out that are 5 or 6 sigma away from the expected. It's a 5 or 6 sigma beat, sigma being standard deviations. It's a statistical measure of how far away from the expected the actual number was. Well, a 6 sigma beat, that probably doesn't mean a whole lot to you. As a statistician, econometrician, it means a lot to me. A 6 sigma beat, let me put it in other terms. There's about a 1 in 9 million chance that occurs. So when you see the BLS or BEA, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Bureau of Economic Affairs, release data that's 6 sigma away from expectations, there's a 1 in 9 million chance that happens. And when it happens repeatedly, you've got to be like, is this a feature or is this a bug?
Bug.
When it happens repeatedly, that's a feature.
Feature.
Yeah. Somebody is doing something with the numbers. Now, the BA and BLS will deny it. And there's some good people that work there, but something is going on. Brentwood, where do I send my money for a hat?
Well, I have an answer for that. You get us, all y'all. We need, hang on, let me check real quick what the numbers are currently. 47 more subs and we can do merch. Yay. Anyone?
47 more subscribers.
That's all we need, and then we can start doing the merch. But these hats are awesome. They're nice. They're soft cotton. I love mine. I wear it a lot. Everybody's like, what? What is that? Yes, Melissa has one. Aren't they?
But we will probably go ahead and order another batch. And because the channel has really grown the past month. We've seen a pretty significant rate of increase in the number of subscribers. We're still a small channel, not going not going to lie, but we started a year and a half ago,
Mm-hmm.
and we're up to 950-ish,
57 subscribers.
957.
Yeah, a month
So
ago
as
we
far
had
as most channels go, that's pretty good.
we had 650 a month ago.
So, yeah, if we could only get Johnny Depp or Amber Heard to come on the show, or both of them, I'll make it official. Mr. Depp, Miss Heard, this is your official invitation.
No, I don't want anything to do with Amber
money.
Heard. No Amber turds. Sorry.
We would be glad to have you both on and kind of help try to heal that bridge, that gap between y'all. Repair the broken bridge between y'all.
Dude, we talk about finance and politics. We're not getting to that kind of drama. No, thank you.
Listen, if they would come on, I would do it just for the entertainment value. That
Yes,
would
it does.
Entertainment value.
Yes, Brentwood. Share this channel on social media. Tell your friends and family. Please, please, please. It does. Thank you,
Yep.
Brentwood.
Please don't forget to do the YouTubey things, and follow Moffat on Money on Twitter as well, if you will. Just give a quick click and follow on Twitter, where you will get some all-time great pithy quotes, comments, insights, general advice on life, sex, religion, politics, whatever you want. We got it all. 3 most important topics in the world.
And we're also on Rumble, of course. Moffat on Money, same thing.
About the jobs number and how it's 1 in a 9 million chance that comes out, that it ends up being that far away from the expected number. Because all these companies like Goldman, Morgan, Bank of America, Citi, Chase, etc., they have access to tons of data as well. They pretty much know what data the bureaus are using to calculate their estimates. Now, one problem is that the bureaus oftentimes use surveys, and the response rates for these surveys have dropped precipitously over the past 5-10 years. So they're only getting like a 30-35% response rate. Everything else that they do is pretty much made up. So I think the devil's in the details. I think there's some big problem there. I can't pinpoint it. I can't tell you exactly what the problem is or why the numbers are so off. And when I say off, what you have to do is look at the behind the scenes revision. Every month, the headline gets all the attention. Jobs increased 375,000 last month. That's a booming economy. Now, honestly, how many of you think the economy is booming out there? How many of you are experiencing a booming economy? Well, the devil's, always in the details or in the background. Last month's, now the 375 was February's release. The month before that, January's numbers down in the fine print was revised downward 35%. It too had been a blowout at 350,000. Great number, shocked everybody. And it was revised down to 229, or a 35% drop. The thing is that December's was revised down. Out of the past 12 months, 10 of them have been revised down. That's not a fluke. It's becoming routine. Now, another thing that you need to know is that the non-farm payrolls comes from something called the Establishment Survey. This is a survey of businesses and asking them how many jobs they added. Now, in the survey, it doesn't discriminate between part-time or full-time. So according to this survey, a part-time job added counts the same as a full-time job added. Well, there's a second survey that doesn't get as much attention in the headlines, but it's probably more accurate. It's called the household survey, where households are surveyed. Can you define a term with the term? And those surveys have had some interesting results the past few years. Now, if you'll notice here, 220, and should have gone on further back, 2019, whatever, you see they're reasonably close. But
That's
starting
2020.
you start seeing some divergence. You start seeing some divergence. And then this divergence keeps increasing to where the household survey lags the employment survey by nearly 9 million jobs. So
Can't imagine why.
tell you, one, it could imply that people lost jobs, but they're taking on a part-time job, or they lost jobs, but they had to take on more than one job. So you've got here in the household, one person working. It doesn't survey the number of jobs, it surveys the number of people working. So if one person has a full-time job and takes on a part-time job, the household survey number doesn't change. The employment survey does change. It shows one job added. Household doesn't show any more people working. So we have seen records being set with the number of people working 2 full-time jobs. It's all-time highs, and it's going higher.
Or even 3 part-time jobs or whatever.
Exactly. Now, in addition, if you look at the data underlying the employment survey, which is released, 1/3 of the gains were in government and particularly hospitality. Hospitality jobs. What are hospitality jobs?
Well, I would say hookers, but
and waiters and waitresses.
Yeah, that's true.
Jobs. So
yeah,
there have been some months where that's 60 or 70% of the jobs. Also, government hiring has really taken off. So you're seeing government and part-time jobs grow. You're seeing the private sector jobs shrink. That's a problem. Long-term problem. And, that's part of the reason why the unemployment rate rose. So how do you create 375,000 jobs, yet more people are unemployed? Warn notices. A warn notice is a company that's big enough. I forget if it's more than 100 or 500 people, but a warn notice is from a big corporation that's going to have to start laying people off. Warn notices are at all-time highs. The labor participation rate didn't budge. The percentage of people in the economy working, the percentage didn't budge. Yes, ma'am. You look like you had something you want to say.
Does that include union strikes?
What include union strikes?
The employment, the unemployment, and the warn.
The warn does not. The surveys, if somebody is on a strike, I think they are counted as not employed.
Okay.
I won't swear to that. I have to check that. But when you start looking underneath the hood at all these numbers, and I mean it's the JOLT survey, it's PCE, it's I could go down the list. Particularly with quote unquote seasonal adjustments, are trash. And it's trash in an election year. Now, am I crazy if I, kind of wonder if there's a connection between the two? What do we know? And this is going to piss some of y'all off. But we know the number of full-time employed has dropped over the past year. Full-time jobs have dropped from 133,000 to 133 million to 132. And the drop has been sharp the last few months. It's down from 134 last November. Now, keep in mind, these numbers, 10 of the last 12 have been revised downward, several of them repeatedly. Looking just at the past year, February 23 to February 24, we've gained 921,000 part-time jobs.
Oh, good God. Wait, that's
We've
2018?
gained, just in the 1 year, we've gained 928,000 part-time, lost 284,000 full-time. Now, if we want to go back further, since 2018, I actually threw up the wrong chart here, so we're going to get to this, but
I was confused. I was like,
yeah,
what?
sorry, my bad. I clicked on the wrong one. Here's an economist, Antony, who points out full-time jobs are down 1.8 million since June of 23 and virtually flat since March of 22. So if I look at this chart, the blue line is full-time jobs. The baby puke gold is part-time jobs. And if I draw a straight line from here around March 22 going across, well, boom, full-time jobs haven't moved since March 22. So what does that mean? Well, and part-time jobs have declined since the middle of 23, significantly. So folks are probably getting, that probably implies folks are getting second or third jobs, boosting the payroll figure. So just further evidence as to what's going on underneath the hood. And I'm seeing more and more people start to criticize these numbers and talk about how there's getting to be too many coincidences for it to be an accident. I've been hating on these releases for several years.
And yes, Brentwood, I mean, you don't like paying more government workers from taxpayer dollars, really? I'm shocked and appalled.
What happens when there are more government workers than there are private sector workers? And the taxes that the private sector pays is not enough to pay for the government workers. How is the government going to pay the government workers?
Clay, real quick.
Answer the question first.
They can't, because
They
the
print more
taxpayers
money.
pay. Oh, stop with that crap. That is.
What happens when they print more money?
I need you to back up a little bit. Inflation.
Bingo. Back up.
I need you to back up for a minute. You're talking about all these jobs that these full-time jobs have disappeared. I'm going to assume, because you didn't say why, that it's inflation. People can afford to pay their workers as much because of the higher cost of goods that consumers can't afford to pay. Am I in the ballpark?
Yeah, you are. I think it's a combination of factors. One, manufacturing jobs continue to leave the U.S.
Wait, no, that is not what Joe Biden said last night. Or 2 nights ago, 3 nights ago, whatever it was.
Chip maker in the world, Taiwan, what is it? TWMC. They're large chip maker. I forget the proper name. Forgive me.
Moffat, you've got it all backwards, because Biden has built 2 chip.
Hold on now. I'm answering the question.
Okay.
They spent $35 billion building an extensive factory in Arizona. and they've halted further development, completing, starting it up for two main reasons. One, they can't find enough skilled American workers to work in the factory. Two, they tried to import Taiwanese workers to work in the factory, but that ran afoul of the administration's DEI requirements because they were not adequately diversified.
Okay.
So they're not importing the workers. They can't find the workers. So they're backing off plans to start manufacturing chips in the US. They are not alone in that. A lot of manufacturers have run into problems with hiring and meeting DEI requirements. DEI,
Like Intel.
equity, and inclusion.
Intel's opened 2 factories, or is supposed to, in Ohio. That's another thing that Biden boasted about in 2022. And they're stalled. They have no idea when they'll open. I assume that's the same issue because they don't want to hire American workers. At least
No, they want to hire American workers. They just can't find enough skilled American workers to hire.
Wait, because we're all stupid?
Poorly educated, poorly trained, poor work ethic, whatever the individual reasons or explanations are, companies are not finding American workers up to their standards.
Okay, back up then. Why are we poorly educated? I'm making a chain here, working backwards.
Yeah, I can't prove anything, but if you look, my answer would be if you look at the actual results the educational system has been producing, particularly in inner cities, poor districts, inner cities, urban districts. I mean, Baltimore, the city of Baltimore, its inner city, doesn't have a single student that can read or write at grade level in any of its 54 schools.
Only 60% of students under 18 can.
Atlanta's
read.
not any different. Chicago's not any different. LA's not any, you just go down the list. So you tell me, is that a feature or is that a bug? Is that by
Feature.
accident that educators now, for the first time in our history, can't educate poor people?
Maybe they need to get an
We had
ID
one-room
and they just can't do
schoolhouses
it.
filled with poor people who did far, far better. We know how to educate poor kids. We know how to educate middle-class kids. We know how to educate rich kids. We just don't do it. We just don't do it. Now, the rich kids generally get a decent education. Most of their schools are pretty good, or their parents send them to private schools, an option that's not available to the poor, that's normally not available to the middle class.
But it's not because of lack of funding.
Oh, no, we spend about $17,000 a year per student in this country. $17,000 a year. $340,000 for a class of 20 students.
How much of that money is spent towards administering education? What?
Your mic's cutting in and out.
Well, so is yours. How much of that money is spent administering education?
Vast majority of it. The money going in the classroom really hasn't improved in 40 years. Out of the 340,000, do the math real quick. Just take a pencil and paper and figure out how much does it cost to educate 20 kids. You've got a teacher. Let's say we pay her 60 grand a year, which is high for 9 months work. 60 grand a year plus 20 for her benefits. That's 80 grand. Okay. $500 a year for books for students, which is high. So that's 10,000. I'm up to 9 grand. The room, let's rent Class A office space downtown for 1,000 square feet. You've got $1,000 a month. $12 a square foot. Make it higher or lower if you want, whatever. So that's $10,000. I'm up to $100,000. I've got the room, the books, the teacher paid for. Okay, you can have one secretary that will take care of the administrative needs for, I don't know, 8 classes, 8 rooms.
I thought we were just talking 20 students.
Well, so that's 160 students. She handles the record keeping for 160 students. So if you have 320 students, you need 2 secretaries. So at $4,000 per room per year. So it pays her 32, 35,000, whatever. Make it more if you want, 5, 6,000. Fine me. So now I'm up to 105,000. I need a principal. So one principal can cover 20 rooms.
Hang on. Let's keep this small real quick.
$100,000 a year for a principal, 5,000 a room. So I'm up to 110, 115,000 out of 340,000. Are you seeing where I'm headed? I've got the teacher, I've got the books, I've got the room, which includes janitorial and utilities. I've got the administration, all that covered. And I'm not even up to a half of what we spend on that room to educate it. Our problem with education isn't a lack of spending. It's that we're wasting way too much money and getting no performance for it. You've got kids, like I say, whole schools who have 0 students performing at grade level in math and English for $340,000 a year.
However, I know, hang on.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. If you took that, let's just say you hired one teacher to homeschool 10 kids. I mean, even with a charter school, right? The money's supposed to follow the child.
Right.
So let's say in North Carolina, it's $17,000 a kid. You got 10 kids, you got one teacher homeschooling, which only really takes about 4 hours a day, right?
If that much. Most schools,
Okay, so
studies show that new learning occurs 30 minutes a day. New learning.
so how could parents maximize, if you do the math, we're talking $170,000, right? Let's just say one of the, parents had a space in their home, or the teacher had a space in her home. The online material is pretty much free, right? And they get to learn at their own level and pace. You just basically have a teacher there to help them explain things they might not understand better and to make sure they're keeping up with what they're doing and how they learn.
A couple times. I'm not a big believer in the online learning. I think that has done a lot of harm to student development and learning. But homeschools have really moved far beyond that. If this, if parents were given the $17,000 to use to spend on their kids' education, I could very easily see a lot of good teachers in the public or even private schools quitting and opening up a classroom in their home. They teach 10 kids per semester. And each semester they charge $5,000 a kid. So instead of having 25 kids, 30 kids, instead of having chaos, all the paperwork, all the extracurricular stuff that she doesn't really help her teach better. She's got 10 kids she can focus on, give more personalized instruction, can choose what materials to use to educate them with, the books, the assignments, whatever.
And she's getting $170,000, at least in this state, right?
No, she'd be
Understand?
in $50,000 a semester, so $100,000 a year, doing 10 students instead of 20, 25, and working fewer hours because she wouldn't have to keep them 8 hours.
Yeah, but the states do the money follows the child. So right now we're paying $17,000 a year.
Could have, if the states went along, each kid could have $17,000 for their education. So you might have this teacher handling the basics, and then you might have to pay somebody else to come in and teach the advanced materials, like a chemist to come in and teach chemistry with lab experiments, that kind of thing. So you'd pay them extra. You'd have to pay for materials, chalkboard, whatever. There's educational materials available. If a parent wants to do everything at home, there's very good educational materials available to them to buy to take their kids through day by day and homeschool them that way.
But if you do homeschool, that money does not follow that child. If you do homeschool, that money does not follow that child.
Well, not now. Vouchers don't exist in most states. So that's the difference. I'm talking about a world where vouchers exist and the parents control the kids' education again. The modern educators, school systems, they keep talking about how parents need to get more involved, parents need to care more. And then when parents show up to meetings, they're told, this is not your concern. We're the experts. We're the expert educators. We'll handle what your kids learn, what they read, materials they have available, what materials we use, what methods we teach. Most of this stuff is absolutely abhorrent, overly complicated. Whiskey 77. I learned many moons ago that this country is business. Money in, money out. If you're spending more than you're bringing in, it's time to cut that.
Whiskey, that is why I like Trump. He is a businessman. He is not a politician.
Yeah, it used to be that, we were more about personal discipline, responsibility, manners, courtesies, these kind of things. A lot of that has gone to the wayside, largely because what they don't reinforce. Schools don't teach or encourage a healthy respect for parents.
Mm-mm.
They
don't want the parents involved. They try to keep information from the parents about their own child. That is not right.
No, it's not. And I'm not going to sit here and say every parent is great or perfect or whatever. We all know there's some instances where people are abhorrent, people are evil, whether they're parents or not.
And hang on one sec. We got another one from Whiskey.
It's based on exceptions to the rule. And, for 150, 175 years, we had the best educated populace in history, using one-room schoolhouses, using Ray's arithmetic, using McGuffey's readers. Education is not that difficult.
No, but I mean, if you look at the Yuri Bezmenov videos we did, there's a chance it was all planned.
Yeah. If you control the educational system, in 40 years, you'll control the mindset of the country. And, obviously things have been working in the educational system to where, don't take my word for it. You go out and you look at the results. You've got city after city after city whose inner city schools have no students, or one or very, very, very few students who can read and write, do math at grade level, who can carry on a responsible conversation, who respect the teacher, who value education, who respect their parents, who are good citizens in the community. Why? Because none of that is encouraged or taught in so many schools. Why is it not taught? Why is it not encouraged? Why are we continuing to see failure after failure after failure in our inner city schools? Why have we forgotten how to educate poor kids? Have we really forgotten, or is it we really don't want to educate poor kids? We prefer them dumb. We prefer them not interested in the world around them. We prefer them hopeless. We prefer to yank every bit of ambition and achievement and self-respect we can out of these kids so that they are insecure in what they do, why they do it, why the gangs look like a better alternative than studying your ass off and trying to get a good job or go to college.
Oh, I know. I have an answer for that because they're learning that college, the 4-year degree, doesn't mean anything.
I'll qualify that. A 4-year degree in gender studies, in histrionics, will not get you very far in this world. You won't even be able to pay off your school loans. You get a college degree in engineering, you get a college degree in accounting or finance, you get a college degree in nursing, you get a college degree, go to medical school.
Well, that's
You can
still
do well.
debatable at this point with all the insurance.
But colleges never tell kids that. They just say, oh, you want this gender studies degree? Great. We'll take your $100,000 in loan debt. And then when you graduate, you won't be able to get a job doing anything but being a Starbucks at barista.
You know what? You know what they expect? Those kids? Show me the money!
And they're not going to see it.
Nope,
not unless they inherit
not one
it.
bit.
And that to me is embarrassing. I'm in the educational system. I have a great and high regard for education and those people who really try to educate their kids. It's a struggle now because so many kids they just want the grade. They just want to be handed the diploma so that they can go on and do whatever they want to do in the hours and time they want to do it. Increasingly, I talk to kids about, going to work and working and ask them, what do they want in future career? They say, oh, I want to work at home. And I'm like, are you nuts? I'm going to get fired one of these days, truly. But I'll go, are you nuts?
Probably.
That's the worst thing you can do starting your career, because so much in finance, the industry I know, the industry I love, it's a trust business, and you can't trust somebody you don't know, don't work with. Secondly, in a university, in an undergraduate degree, we do a very poor job of preparing students for a specific career in finance and most every other area. But that's not our job. And that's something we can't do because, in finance, if you leave and you go to work for Morgan, Goldman, BOA, Citi, Deutsche, UBS, whatever, each one of those houses does things differently. And so there's no way we can prepare you for each way that one of those houses do. So what we do is give you a basic toolbox of skills that you can adapt and improvise and apply depending on which house and where you go, with particular tools you need. That's what we try to do. And that's the advantage of, university education, college education.
Yeah. You learn from a teacher like you who actually cares about the student's education. I mean, your finance department has got a stock ticker, just like you'd see at the, stock exchange in New York. It's a great program.
Yeah, but if you want to go into investments, if you want to go into being a portfolio manager or whatever, you start off as an analyst, stock analyst, bond analyst, credit analyst, whatever. Well, normally in work experience, it takes about, I would say, 10,000 hours of work to become competent in that particular field area. Now, for most people, they work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, so 2,000 hours. It normally takes them 5 to 6 years to develop that sense of competency that other people respect. Well, in investments, working for the investment banks, you don't have 5 or 6 years to get competent. You have 2 years, 2.5 years. If you're not competent by then, they're throwing you out. So to get that 10,000 hours in, you have to be willing to work 70, 80-hour weeks. You have to be willing to give your Friday nights at the bar up, to give up your Saturdays. You may catch some Z's Sunday, but your social life is studying charts, studying your client, learning the business, learning the ropes, not just gaining some familiarity with them, but becoming competent as an expert in that area in 2.5 years. If you don't, you're on the road. Nobody's got time for you. If you don't have that kind of drive, that kind of determination, that kind of intelligence, it's not the field for you.
He's not passionate about this at all.
Huh?
I said, you're not passionate about this at all. I think Clay derailed the conversation himself.
I tell this to some of my kids, and they're like, I didn't know that. I never thought of that. That ought to be the expectation going into every job, is that you are taking this job to develop competence, to develop expertise. You don't know a damn thing. You've got everything to learn. So just how long do you plan to take to master your topic or your field? Do you want to take 10 years to do it? And do you want to try to do it from home where you meet nobody, you develop no deep friendships, you have nobody to mentor you? And I can't stress enough how important that is to a 22-year-old in establishing themselves and developing their career. That mentorship, that guidance, that information, that subtle encouragement, that trying to please someone, that having someone in your corner when you need it. Having somebody who's extremely well respected to recommend you, to refer you, to keep an eye out for opportunity for you. And these kids are not only oblivious to this, they just don't care.
And a lot of this has changed since 2020. You say now they just don't care anymore.
Far worse since 2020. I teach an intro investments class, and I've been doing it for 10, 12 years. I enjoy the introductory classes because you get a broader mix of students. In my fixed income derivatives course, I get very narrow focus. I mean, I get dorks, I get quants, kids that want to be quants, very good students. I love them. I enjoy teaching it, but I get more of a diverse mix of personalities, types, whatever, in the intro class. And so I enjoy teaching it. It's a fun class. You get a chance to open some eyes. Well, teaching this course over the past 12 years, I think I've got it down pat. I think time value of money, net present value, these things don't change over the past 4, 5, 6 years. It's the same material, same introductory basic material. So I teach the same thing, same way I have. And I think, is it just my perception on the difference between students today and students of 5 years ago? Or, is there something there? So I gave the same, and I've done this for 2 semesters, gave the same exact exam I did in prior years. Like this past month, I gave the same exam I did in 2018. Same exam, same material. The scores, previously, the average had been a 76 in 2018. The average this semester was a 52. The lowest grade in the class was a 7, which if you had just randomly guessed, you should have outscored that.
That's pretty funny. Hang on.
Maybe put it in terms of gaming for the young adults. Being in the office in person, you earn bonus points. Being in office in person, you actually get the cheat codes for the game.
There you go.
That's probably the best way to put it. Whiskey 77. Indoctrination. The left has been playing the long game on that, and it has paid off, unfortunately.
Yeah, they have. And I mean, they have been in it and in it and in it.
Yeah, I find nothing wrong in that statement. It's unfortunate.
I know Clay has been, well, I don't know if you want me to say this or not, but especially frustrated. And he's losing, in my opinion, starting to just be like, why do I even do this? They just don't care. They don't study. They don't show up. He held 3 different, what do you call them right before the test? The
review sessions.
No one showed up.
Yeah.
No one showed up. 3 times.
Or one person showed up to one. I can't say nobody, but in essence, yeah. Out of 30 people in a class. Whiskey. I'm a trucker by trade, 20 plus years.
Bless you.
Well done. When I started, you shut up and learned for years before you were considered good. Now these pups take a 6-week class and know it all and won't listen.
That is 100% true.
Yeah. And it's I hear that from employers all over. They're really, really struggling to hire the new generation, the Gen Zers. They've got more attitude and less understanding. That's never a good combination for the future.
Mm-mm.
And you can't convince them of that. They say, oh, you're just a boomer. And I'm like, well, hell yeah. I was smart enough not to eat Tide Pods when I was a kid. And I just look at them.
Yeah, and I'm Gen X and we raised ourselves. So
anyway,
oh, good God.
Literally had 20-something ask how they could become a CEO. When asking what industry, they responded, they don't care. They just wanted to be a CEO.
Are we for? Oh, for fuck's sake! That, and that's another thing. Clay was talking to. I don't know if it was a financial person hiring, but they said had somebody show up for an interview and had to take a call or a text from her boyfriend in the middle of it. What?
Yeah. And they told the interviewer, hold on a second, this is my boyfriend. And so she turns the phone on, takes the call, talks to him for a minute or two, and then tells him, I'm in an interview. I'll call you back shortly. And the guy, the interviewer, while she was still on the phone, said, oh no, take your time. This interview's over. So just,
yeah.
And that is not, sadly, that's not necessarily unusual. Now, don't get me wrong. I've got some good kids. I've got some good students. They've, kind of old school, been educated, homeschool, whatever. So I'm not indicting everybody in this Gen Z generation. But I'm telling you, by and large, there's some systemic issues. When the whole class average is a 52. The highest grade in the class wasn't as good as the average in 2018. Nobody made above the average of 2018. Same exact test, same damn exact test. Question for question for question. Whiskey 77, no Tide Pods, but there may have been a paint chip or two. A fully
I think
leaded
whiskey.
paint chip. We snacked on those.
Did y'all? Because I thought that was more of a Gen X thing. Or it was the water from the hose. Yeah, that was kind of us for sure.
Oh,
we weren't allowed
we
to
were
come
way
inside.
before y'all sucking water out of a hose.
At least your parents were home. We just sort of raised ourselves. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we could run around till dark.
We could
Go
too.
all over the neighborhood or that area of town riding our bikes. So
Ha ha ha. Whiskey is X. Woohoo.
You made Ellen's night.
You, me, Brentwood, Melissa.
I think most of y'all are Xers, actually. We need more.
Because we're
boozers.
smart. We're smart.
Yeah, y'all weren't altogether horrible. Your music kind of sucked, but y'all weren't altogether horrible.
Not altogether horrible. Compare that to your little Z's.
Brentwood, I stand by that hose water being the best water. Once it wasn't boiling from the hose.
Oh my
sitting in the sun all
God,
day.
that was the worst. We got hungry. We ate honeysuckle. I mean, that's all there was.
Yeah, we used to eat those little wild onions.
Yeah.
Honeysuckle.
See, I'm with you, Brentwood.
Our music did not suck.
Exactly. Or
if we needed to come home, my mom whistled and it echoed through the neighborhood. We actually had a neighbor that had one of those big bells, and they would ring it a few times instead of hollering for the kids. Probably wasn't a bad idea because that bell would peal throughout the neighborhood.
All right, Whiskey, I hope you've got your gifts turned on because I'm about to give some subscriptions.
All right, while she's doing that, I'm going to continue on with my discussion of the numbers. We already talked about how full-time jobs have, pretty much vaporized over the past couple of years. Part-time jobs have soared. Well, there's more. The administration was really kind of excited because, quote unquote, real wages went up 0.1%. But what actually happened was wages didn't move. It's just hours worked dropped. So the hours paid, the amount paid for the hours worked increased slightly. Overall, hourly earnings have dropped. Another indicator that more part-time jobs are being filled rather than full-time jobs. We've talked about repeatedly how credit card debt is above pre-COVID trends. So, pre-COVID, you had a trend like this. Well, debt has been more like this, just absolutely blowing up. We've seen record numbers of people tapping their retirement plans to make ends meet. Multifamily housing units are at the highest default rate since 2013. Does any of this sound like a booming economy with hundreds of thousands of jobs being created every month?
Yes.
There's a lot of things going on under the surface, things that are indicative, that are not indicative of a growing economy. And my big problem is that looking at all these numbers, they never square. They never are consistent. They never make sense. It causes my head to hurt. I've got, actually this past month, the number of people with multiple jobs fell. So we created jobs, fewer people are working, and fewer people hold multiple jobs. I mean, my math's kind of fuzzy, but I remember that multiplying two negatives equals a positive. But I don't think adding the two negatives, fewer people working, fewer multiple jobs, should equal a positive, gains in jobs. That math just doesn't work. And, you know, the way I was raised, math should always work. You know, others are noticing the gimmicks. Here, I've got a graph showing the numbers from pre-pandemic trends. Actually, I did not cut the
You did.
no, I didn't get the legend. But here he's showing the unemployment level with the official statistic. He's showing the unemployment level using the labor force participation rate pre and post pandemic, the unemployment level using the employment to population statistic, the unemployment level using the household survey, and the unemployment level using the establishment survey. So the official reported one is somewhere around 3.9%. But if you look at these others, you're getting numbers between 6 and 8%. This shouldn't be this big of a difference. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the numbers that the administration's producing just don't fit. It's a far cry from what should fit. You know, and, you know, as I kind of blew the secret a little earlier, the jobs are not going to Americans. Just in February, 1.2 million immigrants gained a job.
Can you do the full screen on that?
Yeah. Hold on
Down
just
here?
a second.
Okay.
494,000 native born Americans lost their job. So if I put that up on a graph, the red is foreign born immigrants. The blue is native born Americans.
What?
Now, if you look since COVID, native born workers have lost about 2.4 million jobs. The net job gains are all in the immigrants. There's been zero job creation for U.S. born workers since June of 2018. Now, excuse me.
So when
And if
Joe
I break
Biden
this
says he
down-
created all these jobs, he created them for foreign-born workers.
If I break this down, nearly 3.9 million jobs have gone to foreign-born workers, whereas native-born workers have lost 18 million.
What a happy statistic.
I'm sorry, 18,000 to 3.9 million, 18,000. Now, I'm not knocking immigrants, especially legal immigrants, getting a job. I know, so like I have mentioned earlier this show, a lot of companies are having trouble hiring Americans due to lack of work ethic, wanting to not come into the office, poor skills, whatever. So looking at this chart can be somewhat misleading. But I think the numbers ought to be known. I think a conversation ought to be started. I think this chart is indicative of problems in our economy, in our country. And we're doing something wrong to the natives. You know, something is not right. So again, please, I'm not knocking immigrants, particularly legal immigrants.
No, we love legal immigrants all day long.
But for some reason, they're getting all the jobs. Foreign-born workers, legal or illegal, are getting all the jobs. So, I'll continue to try to investigate that as time goes by. And if I see something that offers some additional insight, we'll keep bringing this up because this is a big issue to me. If Americans can't get jobs, what does that say about our future? Do we just kick all the Americans out and bring in enough immigrants to run the economy?
Apparently.
I'm being a little facetious, but seriously, is that, can that be a thing?
Okay, so how about this, Clay? When I guess this was when I stopped doing hair just for physical body reasons. After 14 years, tried to get another job, which I had the Adobe suite under my belt. I could code. I knew 4 languages in computer coding, but I didn't have a 4-year degree. I had an associate's degree, and I was either overqualified or underqualified. And I applied to like 500 jobs. This was in 2017, 18.
Yep.
And it was just like, you need a 4-year degree. I don't care, what you know about Adobe. I mean, I'm just like, okay. So they were still sending that message. Even then.
And I will say this about that. Due to the extreme difficulty, U.S. companies have had with hiring, a lot of them increasingly are getting rid of the college degree requirement. They're willing to train if somebody is willing to come in and work and learn and don't think they're entitled to automatically start at a high position. They're willing to bring people in and train them. So that's kind of a good. It's sad that they have to do that. But
well, they can't, the people that come to them have to have basic skills about what they're doing.
Yeah, they have to have the ability to learn. They have to have the willingness and the desire to learn. And they have to have some humility to know that there's a lot they have to learn. But that's hard to find. But companies are increasingly open to that. Increasingly doesn't mean like it's everybody yet, or it's,
right,
easy to find a job, but it's coming.
I remember when I went to pick up the first set, we ordered like 6 hats at first. And it was a company I had been to several years prior. And the first time I walked in there, they had like customer service agents and computers all over one room. Their production room was full. Their, designers, that room was full. And I went in to pick up these hats a few weeks ago, and there were like 7 people in the building. It's a huge warehouse. And I'm like, what? I said, this is different. And the girl said, yeah, no one works in the building anymore.
Yep.
I was like, okay. She said, they're all over the country. It was weird, really weird to me.
Times they are changing.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to shift gears a little bit here to something else. What else can be done to hurt the working class? Kind of the theme of the night.
You name it.
Well, of significant interest, I think, or at least it's garnered some interest, is the administration's Consumer Financial Protection Board, CFPB, has proposed, and the proposal got a lot of favorable press. It is proposed that the fees charged to cardholders who miss a payment be capped at $8. Right now, if you don't make a credit card payment, you can be charged $20 to $40, depends on the firm. Currently, like I say, $20 to $40. Well, cap it at $8. And so that's garnered some enthusiasm. And if you're missing payments, well, that sounds like a good, good law. But the devil's always in the details. What most articles, what every article I've seen overlooks or skips is that this change will cost credit card companies about $8 to $9 billion a year. And you think, they don't need the money, which is kind of a whole different story. But anyway, what the law does is increase their risk and reduce their income. That's never a good combination if you want to encourage business growth. What it will also likely do is probably encourage more people to miss a payment, which brings up another entirely different set of problems. But the key point I want to make tonight, and the CFPB admits it, is that for those cardholders who make their payments on time, they will see increases or imposition of fees, annual or monthly fees, to recover these credit card losses related to late payments. The money has to come from somewhere. And the administration is saying, hey, you can't charge those people who are responsible. So what's the alternative? You charge people who aren't responsible.
Nope. But the problem is, if you take the people, you up their fees, but they're living paycheck to paycheck and paying on time, they're going to get destroyed.
Well, that's just it. You're increasing the expenses to the 85% of cardholders that make their payment on time, which probably will encourage more of them not to make their payments on time. So it gives preferential treatment to us.
Encourage them?
Yeah.
We're talking about the $8 thing?
Yeah.
I just
because studies show that right now, the biggest reason for not making a late payment, the biggest incentive not to make a late payment, is the fees, the penalties.
Sorry, I missed a little bit. I know we talked about this earlier. I missed. I was trying to look at Rumble and stuff. I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
Everybody.
So if they remove the severe penalty, then more people will likely miss payments, which will cause bigger problems.
But don't you think that they know their credit score is going to be affected if they miss a payment?
Yeah, but the biggest incentive was the penalties. Credit score was like third.
I don't believe that if you need to buy a car, if you want to buy a house, if you want to rent an apartment.
That's what the survey says.
Survey says?
Survey says, duh. And most people really don't think about their credit score in relation to making their monthly payment. It's just not something most people think of or are aware of. But it's a good point. If you do want to continue to use debt or, buy a car, buy a house, those late payments will hurt you.
Big time.
But the main problem with it is, and it's not getting a whole lot of attention, is that it gives preferential treatment to a minority who are frequently making late payments at the expense of the majority who are consistently paying their bills on time. That would be, my concern or issue. And it's the law of unintended effects. What actually will that encourage people to do? I think it'll encourage more and more people to miss payments, which creates huge other problems down the road. Again, the cure, there's a cure, a very short-sighted cure being implemented that creates longer-term problems. And to me, that kind of sums up oftentimes government policy. It's like whack-a-mole. A mole pops up, you try to pop it on the head instead of figuring out why there's so many moles in your yard to begin with.
Kind of like Whiskey said earlier, spend $800 billion, to get $500. It makes no sense.
Just more reasons not to use credit cards. That's another thing that'll happen is people that don't need credit cards will quit using them.
Mhm.
You know, I put everything of mine on a credit card because I get 4 or 5% cash. So the things I buy, I put it on a card and then pay it off at the end of the month. And then I get, 4% back in cash. But if the fees and the penalties reduce that much, much less even obliterate it, I'm out. I'll go back to using all cash.
And the interest rates. That's
Yeah.
another that are getting ridiculous.
Oh, people that are racking up the credit card debt are getting hammered. Absolutely hammered.
Like 33 to 37%. You're paying almost half in interest.
Yeah, the last thing I want to touch on the State of the Union was another one of the president's proposals. He wants to raise the minimum corporate tax rate by 40%, as well as implement a tax on the rich of at least 25%. Now, it's always, you see it just throughout history. People are always going tax the other guy. It's always easy to cheer taxes on the other guy. But historically, this country, the population has generally been against income taxes, even on the rich, because many people aspired to be rich someday. They also realize that the more you tax, quote unquote, the rich, think of it as taxing capital. Well, the less capital there is. And the less capital there is, the less investment there is. The less investment there is, the less new jobs there are. The less new jobs there are, the less people employed there are.
Doesn't that also have an effect on the amount of capital there is to loan unless you just print money?
Yeah, same thing. It raises the cost. And that's the thing most people don't realize is that most people think that corporations pay taxes. But let me make this perfectly clear. Corporations do not pay taxes.
I was going to ask you that. I'm so glad you brought this up.
Corporations collect them. Taxes are an expense to the corporation, just like rent, raw materials, labor, whatever. The more taxes they have to pay, the higher price they have to charge. Higher price they charge, the less they sell, the less competitive they are on the global markets. So raising corporate taxes hurts economic growth, hurts economic development. There are also studies that show that employees don't receive the same increases they would otherwise, that employees bear a share of the increased tax load through lower wages.
Yep.
So
instead of the consumers with the higher prices.
And consumers pay higher prices, which if companies are forced to continue raising their prices, we get the well-known
Inflation.
Inflation. And it would be a further disincentive to manufacture in the U.S. So it seems like this administration is aggressively pursuing almost every policy it can to try to kill manufacturing in the U.S., which is a fascinating position to me. They talk about how they want more jobs, how they want manufacturing, but then every law or regulation they passed discourages manufacturing in this country.
Kind of like they want people to drill more oil. But every law they pass seems to make it more difficult. Even though they have the permits, they can't afford to borrow the money, or they can't get the regulations passed to be able to do the drilling.
And I'll say this, several years ago, France passed tax and they had to rescind it within 6 months because so much money left the country, their net tax revenues fell. People with money have options. And they are going to take their money to wherever it can be put to the best use. Simple truth, whether you like it or not. We'd all love for somebody else to pay all the taxes. But the practical reality in this country is that the average worker, not the rich, the average worker works the months of January, February, March, and most of April just to pay their taxes before they take out a dime for their housing costs, before they take out a dime for their food, before they take out a dime to pay for their kids, themselves,
utilities,
whatever.
medical,
Any of that. So January, February, March, and most of April. Average family, 33% of what you make is going out in taxes. That's too much. Not only that, it's not enough. If you look
that doesn't make any sense. What?
Let me show you this. This is the U.S. debt clock, and it's a real-time clock of the U.S. national debt. And here you see the current debt at about 34.5. Well, what you kind of want to look at is the budget items. The largest single budget item that we spend is on Medicare, Medicaid, 1.7 trillion. Social Security, 1.4 trillion. Defense, 865 billion. Well, the federal tax revenue, total taxes collected, 4.6 trillion. If I remember, income tax, what we pay in income tax is 2.2 trillion. Now, remember that because here is the interest on the debt net. Now, the timing is off. We're actually on a monthly basis spending more on interest now than we are on defense. But this is, the year to date. Not calendar year, fiscal year to date. So it's off a little bit.
What is the, can you put that in the comments?
Yeah.
That, because I can't read what it says because I'm blind as a bat.
Bottom line is interest, our interest on the debt now is in third place in the federal budget. In another year and a half, 2 years, it's going to replace Social Security in second place. And then probably within 5 years, it's going to replace Medicare, Medicaid as the number one budget item. How cool is that?
Question.
We're going to spend more in interest than what we'll collect in income taxes. How cool is that?
Not cool. Question.
But this has, a lot of little information. Problem is, I wish they would link it to their actual source. They don't, but it does have, bukus of numbers, ratios, and it is an interesting page.
I have a question.
And that is?
Okay. I was waiting. I'm sorry. Um,
No, sorry.
When Biden announced that he took $2 trillion off the national deficit, what does that mean exactly? Not that I believe it, but
I did not see that particular claim, so I can't comment specifically on it.
mhm.
But oftentimes when politicians, I know when politicians in DC talk about, they saved so much money, what they do is produce an estimate of what the spending would have been
Mhm.
versus what they say it's going to be. So they have one estimate versus another estimate,
Okay.
and they make that estimate, that difference, to where it's a savings. So then they can
Okay.
say, we saved you money. It's like, if you give your significant other money for, shopping, a couple $100, and instead of spending $200, they spend $300.
Okay.
But then they come back and say, "Oh, well, this dress was $400, was normally $400, but it was $100 off. So I saved you $100."
No, you didn't.
And I'm like, "It actually cost me $100 more dollars." So it all depends. Devil's always in the details on how these things are defined. I'm not, like I say, I'm not specifically familiar with Biden's claim. Haven't looked into it. I can do it, try to get you an answer, but don't have a solid answer for you now.
Yeah, I'm trying to find. I know you're like crazy girl. What are you doing? Um, Shoot, there was something that I really, really, really wanted, and I don't think.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
there.
while
Here it
she's
is.
hunting for that, let me just throw it out to people in the crowd. Do y'all have some questions, comments? Does all this make sense? And if I say something that doesn't make sense, please let me know. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I suck at mind reading. So if you've got if something I say doesn't make sense or raises a question, ask. Once you ask, it then becomes my responsibility to figure out a way to effectively communicate it. E?
Hang on, I think I had it. I can't hear it because I'm scared it's gonna.
Brentwood. It makes sense. Only question is, how do we stop the craziness? Personally, I think bringing back tar and feathering might go a long way. Short of that, I want to say be careful who you vote for. Quit voting the same idiots back into office. But the problem is, oftentimes good people don't want to run for office. They don't want to expose themselves, their families to the grief, to the public scrutiny. They don't want to spend all their time raising money. All sorts of reasons why good people don't run for office. So, maybe part of the problem is trying to encourage good people to offer up a sacrifice for the future good of their kids and their families.
I,
Yeah, smart people don't want to run for office. They've got better things to do.
Listen, people, in my opinion, to want that kind of office, you have to be narcissistic and you have to be a little bit of a psychopath because you have to want that attention. You have to want to do that job, which is probably or can be the most humiliating job, the best job. It can ruin your life. There's a lot of things, and you have to have the confidence, at least of a narcissist, to even attempt that. Am I wrong? Right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's narcissism necessarily, but there is a lot of that in DC. I will agree to that. There's some people that I think are not narcissistic, that are genuinely good people.
True. I think
Just
Mike
not enough
Johnson is
of them.
one of those.
Huh?
I think Mike Johnson is one of those.
I hope so. I believe so. But time will tell.
Okay, bring up the long Chris Cuomo video. That's what I wanted to where he's talking about how they are not for you. They don't care about you. It's not about you. It's about them. And there might be a different clip I can grab of that and put it up tomorrow. You know what I'm talking about? The 1918.
Just takes me a minute to get it started and to get StreamYard attuned to it. Because remember, I have to turn off the stop
I know, get the
screen
volume
sharing, and then I
all
have
the
to
stuff.
restart the
I
screen
know.
sharing with the sound.
It's a minute or two into it. If you could make it full screen, that'd be great. Just down here on YouTube. Over, other way too. Next.
Oh,
Nope,
they had a
other way.
Well, and it's not because I'm a good person. It's just, I don't find it productive. I don't see CNN that way. You are right about Trump. Trump changed the game. And I mean the word game as an operative phrase. Our politics, our political culture, the coverage of it, the parties, it's all part of a game dynamic that only works to the advantage of the players in the game and not to you. And I think that that is one of the biggest problems that really can change the game, is people understanding that it's not about them anymore. Even last night, everybody watched the State of the Union for a take on whether the President of the United States was competent, literally, like in a physical sense, which is a very low bar. And what was he going to say about Trump? Nobody watched for what they were going to say about you or your life or what it's supposed to be about. He didn't even tell us what the State of the Union is, because everybody knows the answer. Everybody knows it's in a state of disunion. So I didn't see CNN as a malefactor. I still don't. I think it's one of the strongest organizations in the world when it comes to coverage. Trump changed the game because he took on.
But he's right about that. He's right.
He is.
They don't care about us. They don't care about you watching. They don't care about any of that.
They don't. They care about their power. They care about keeping their power and enriching themselves.
Yep.
I mean, it's what's the old adage? It's a story as old as time itself. You've got so many of the congressmen, like AOC, goes to Washington. She can't even afford a separate apartment. She has to sleep in her office to begin. A lot of new representatives do. And then within 2 years, she's a multi-millionaire.
How's that happen?
McConnell, Pelosi, the Obamas. We've had one politician that I know of that went to D.C. richer than when they left. That was richer going into D.C. than when they left D.C. Do you know who that is?
Pelosi? Besides Pelosi or Pelosi?
No. That was richer when they started in D.C. than when they left D.C.
I don't know anybody.
There's only one that I know of, and that would be Trump.
Oh, true. I gotcha.
So every other politician, now Johnson has been relatively flat, very low gains, hasn't really increased his net worth, but he's the exception. You have so many
for
of
that
them
too.
Huh?
He got crap for that, saying that he hadn't figured out how to game it.
And you've got some of them like Tuberville from Alabama, my home state, arguing that, senators ought to be able to invest money. And I don't think they should. I think they have access to inside information, and I think there's fairly strong evidence they've used that to enrich themselves. I don't think you ought to go to DC poor and come out rich, just on principle. So if I were king, everybody, being in an elected or government position would put their monies, in trust or just in a stock mutual fund that they can't trade in or out of, or only get 1 or 2 trades a year,
Yep.
severely limiting their ability to exploit individual situations.
All right,
And
we're
they'd have to
about at that.
disclose.
Yeah.
The
We do need
disclosures that
term
we've got right
limits.
now are too general, too generic. They're broad ranges. I think it needs to be more specific as well. And Brentwood, all I can say is amen.
100%.
We need term limits. That would cure a lot of the problems.
Now, we got to leave on something a little funny tonight. If
Okay.
you can take down your presentation there, your extra screen.
Takes me a second.
I know.
It's gone.
I got it. Hang on. Yeah,
But I
wrong
do
one.
know that you're going to live by whatever you're saying right now, because if I can tell you one thing about Trump supporters, they're good on finding the clips and putting it side by side. They were going to have you in 2016 saying something, and then they're going to have you right here saying, I've never said that.
You can do it, but just if you got to be right about the clip.
If you can ever look backwards and say, I have no regrets, nothing could change, I was great, I just question your sincerity, because I have regrets and changes about
Right.
every chapter of my life. And so to hear you say that you have none.
But that's not what I said. Which is, of course,
you said
part of the
a lot
problem.
of words to say, I never said anything on the network. Things are being attributed to me that I never did. That's pretty much what your answer was,
But that's
right?
also the truth.
Okay.
I don't
Like I said, the Trump supporters are fast. Before we get up from this table, they're going to
Listen.
have something you said next to you saying that. I'm just telling you. That's why I always try to be honest. But I do know
To me, that's just
you're going to live by what.
got rid of me. There you go.
All right.
No,
I
to me,
clicked on
that's
the
just
wrong one.
funny. Sorry. She called him out. And I haven't looked yet because I'm trying, but
Well, as
I just-
Ellen already alluded to, the hour's getting a little long.
we've been up since 6 a.m. and now it's 9:15.
Which is another way of saying we're really way past Ellen's bedtime.
And my dog, we sit on a concrete floor for 5 hours a day. My dogs are barking.
Yeah. But, if you have any other questions, comments, DM me on Twitter or email me at moffatonmoney@gmail.com. Do the YouTubey things, if you will, before you go. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. We hope you
typically
got
look at
something
all
out of it.
all right, we typically look at all the comments on the videos too. We might not respond to all of them, but they're all themed. So if there's something, that you have a question about one of the videos that we've done, leave a question on it and we will see it.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate your support, your encouragement, and just your fellowship. Join us Tuesday night for the book club. We will post a Zoom link to the community page.
Mhm.
So keep an eye out for that. And we look forward to seeing you then to discuss The Great Gatsby. And if you haven't read it, just have some familiarity with it, or, do the Cliff Notes thing, join us.
Or watch the movie.
Or watch the movie. Y'all, have a great rest of the weekend. We thank you. Our time is
Thanks,
up.
guys.
Good
Good
night.
to see you. Good night.